Hi, Sarah.
Hi, how are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm great. I appreciate you taking the time to chat with us today.
Oh, it's my pleasure.
The first question I wanted to ask you is which series of your books are your favorite to write and why?
I would have to go with the KGI series. And the why is that is a series that, I started working on years ago, back in 2002. Back when I was just making the decision to actually try and, become a published author and write for something more than my own enjoyment. This series came to me, and I loved the family, I loved the setting, the characters came alive for me. I mean, I had so many stories in my head. And when I eventually became published, I had to be patient and wait for just the right time and opportunity to get to tell the stories, in the KGI series. So, I just released book 7, and book 8 will release at the end of December. And I adore that series. I love the family. I love the extended family. I love the team members. It's set in an area that I can still, that I still consider home. I lived in Paris, Tennessee for several years. I'm intimately familiar with the area. I, still consider it home. And so that series has a lot of my heart and soul wrapped, into it. So absolutely, that's my favorite, series. I love everything I write, otherwise I wouldn't write it, but I do have favorites, and the KGA series is my favorite.
Yeah, that one's closest to your heart.
Yes.
There's been a lot of focus on erotica and erotica romance lately. I know you've been writing it yourself for years, but does this increased popularity now make it harder or easier for you when it comes to writing them?
It doesn't make it harder for me to write, because I don't allow myself to be influenced by trends, because I think if an author does that, then I don't think the end result is going, to do so well. Readers can tell when an author's heart is not into a story. And conversely, they can tell when the author is really passionate about a story, because it leaps off the page at them. It comes to life. And I've been writing erotic romance, as you said, for years, and I don't think my stories have changed. The stories themselves change, the settings, the circumstances, the characters, but in every one of my books, whether it's erotic romance, the KGI series, or if it's a Scottish historical, my books are all focused on the emotional aspects, and primarily the emotional components of a relationship, no matter how highly eroticized the books are, or if they're not erotic. The focus is primarily going to be on the emotional components of a relationship, between the two main characters. So for me, we had the first big boom in popularity of erotic romance back in 2005, 2006. It waned a little bit, then it came storming back. I kept writing, you know, all those years. I never stopped writing erotic romance, and I still continue to write the same exact, you know, what readers expect from a Maya Banks book is what they get, from my books. Whether it's a book I wrote 5 years ago or if it's a book I wrote yesterday, it's going to be a Maya Banks book.
Do you have a lot of difficulty switching back and forth between the different genres that you write?
Oh, no, absolutely not. That's what keeps it fresh and exciting for me. If all I had to write, say for instance, was the KGI series, if I had to sit down and write KGI story after KGI story back to back to back all the time, I would tear my hair. I would tear my hair out. I would get bored and I wouldn't want to write it anymore. I love the ability to be able to write a contemporary erotic romance, and then a KGI story, and then a Scottish historical, and then by the time it cycles back around and I'm ready to write another contemporary erotic or another KGI series, I'm excited and eager to dive back into that world. So it keeps it very fresh and exciting that I get to switch it up and I don't have to write the same thing all the time.
Right. You give a lot of credit to Julie Garwood for influencing you. Have you actually met her?
Yes, I did. I got to meet her in Kansas City just this past year. Definitely a highlight for me. You know, I wanted to get one of her books signed, and she asked for one of mine, which, you know, thrilled me to no end. I made a complete idiot of myself, took a picture and tweeted it to everybody who would look at it. But, you know, what I always say that everything I learned about writing, I learned from Julie Garwood. And what I mean when I say that is that Julie Garwood's books, if you read them, she makes every single one of her characters count. Even if it's a character who only has 2 pages in the entire book, she gives you a colorful, vibrant, fleshed out character. So you don't find yourself skimming because every scene is interesting and colorful. And so that's what I've tried to do with my own writing, you know, and I don't just focus on the hero and heroine. Yes, they get my primary focus, but I don't want readers to be bored by the secondary character. So I try to make every single character, even if they're the villain or if they're the sister or a cousin or a best friend, I try to make them interesting and colorful and 3-dimensional, you know, in a book. And so that's it in a nutshell, because to me that's what Julie Garwood does in her books.
When you find yourself actually struggling with a scene or having a moment of writer's block, what helps you get back on track with your writing or helps inspire new ideas for you?
I will say I don't believe in writer's block. At least for me, because if I'm not writing, it's for a reason. It's either because I'm being lazy and don't want to, or it's because there's something wrong with the story. If the story is not coming to me, it's not because I'm waiting on my muse, because I am my muse. You know, writing is a job and it has to get done. I can't sit around for weeks waiting for inspiration. So when I find that I get, you know, slowed down or bogged down, 100% of the time, it is because I have veered off the path in the story and there is something wrong with the story itself. So what I do is I go back and I start from the beginning and I read until I discover where I jumped the tracks. And once I discover that, then the story flows so much easier. So all I have to do is go back and fix what's wrong with it, and then, you know, I get back to it and it comes a lot easier. But it's my fault if I'm not writing. It's not, you know, my fickle muse or because I have writer's block. It's because either I'm not doing it or because I've gone in the wrong direction with the story.
All right. Well, my time is up with you, but I just wanted to thank you for taking the time to sit and answer a few questions for us.
Oh, no problem. It was my pleasure.